There is a strange moment that many people only notice once they are fully grown. It is the moment you stand in front of a mirror, look at yourself, and cannot understand why that old feeling of "I am special" has disappeared. In its place is a quiet, lingering emptiness. You are not exactly a failure, but you no longer feel exceptional either. It feels like you are living a duller, more faded version of your own life. If this sounds familiar, there's a good chance you are brushing up against a real psychological state that rarely gets named. Burnout in people who were once seen as smart. This is not a story about laziness or a lack of willpower. This is a story about a crack that forms very early, then slowly widens over the years. Let us rewind a little, back to elementary school, or the early years of middle school. Back then, life felt like it was set on easy mode. Lessons made sense the moment you heard them. Tests were over before anxiety even had time to show up. While other kids struggled with numbers and words, you moved through everything as if it were just a formality. High scores felt automatic. Teachers remembered your name. Your family talked about you with pride. Most importantly, you began to see yourself through their eyes. You were not just a child, you were the smart kid. That label stuck to you and became the core of your identity. You did not need to try very hard because you believed, and everyone else believed, that you were simply born different. But that very ease quietly planted the seeds of a dangerous trap. When everything comes too quickly, you never learn patience. You never learn how to fail. You never learn how to stand back up after getting something wrong. All you know is how to win. It is like being pushed out into the ocean on a perfect surfboard without ever learning how to swim. The water's calm, the sun is bright, and you think you are fine until the first big wave shows up. And in that moment, you realize that what you were missing was not intelligence, but the ability to survive when life is no longer easy. The fracture does not arrive in a dramatic moment. It comes slowly, very slowly. It usually shows up in the final years of high school, or more clearly when you step into college or your first real work environment. Suddenly, you realize you are no longer the smartest person in the room. Around you are people who are just as capable or even more capable, and the biggest difference is that they are already used to having to work hard. Knowledge is no longer something you can grasp just by picking it up quickly. It now demands time, discipline, and boring repetition. Then, for the first time, you hold a result that is not what you expected. It is not disastrous, but it is shocking enough. For other people, it is just a number. For you, it feels like a direct hit to your identity. In that moment, a dangerous question starts echoing in your mind. Not, what do I need to do better? But what if I was never as good as I thought? That feeling is deeply unsettling, like standing on a foundation that suddenly gets pulled away. Everything you built your confidence on for years, the belief that you were special, that you were different, begins to shake. And instead of treating this as a signal to learn how to adapt, your brain, which is used to winning, chooses self-protection. It whispers that if you truly try your hardest and still fail, the truth will be exposed. You were never special at all. That fear grows so large that it freezes you in place. That is when a behavior that feels very familiar begins to appear. Procrastination. From the outside, people see someone who is slow, undisciplined, always waiting until the last minute. But on the inside, the story is completely different. You are not avoiding the work. You are avoiding the possibility of failing after giving it everything you have. By pushing things to the final moment, you create an escape route for yourself. If the result is bad, you can blame the lack of time. If the result is decent, you convince yourself that you are still smart even without much effort. And little by little, procrastination stops being a bad habit and turns into a subtle psychological defense mechanism, protecting your fragile sense of self, at least in the short term. Over time, that loop does more than just slow you down. It wears you down from the inside. You start to depend on the stress of nights spent racing against deadlines. The urgency gives you a familiar rush of adrenaline, an illusion that you are still living up to that old smart version of yourself. In contrast, anything that requires long-term preparation leaves you frozen. You look at a big project and have no idea where to begin. You want everything to be perfect on the very first try, but that desire is exactly what keeps you from starting at all. You might act indifferent, even dismissive of hard work. But deep down, there is a quiet emptiness and a silent disappointment, because you know you are wasting your potential. At the root of this problem is a distorted form of perfectionism. You are not afraid of doing something wrong. You are afraid of doing something that is not good enough to deserve the image of intelligence you once carried. In your mind, everything gets pushed to two extremes, either excellent or worthless. When the result does not match what you imagined, you delete it, revise it, think some more, and then delay again. Slowly, thinking replaces action. You read more materials, watch more tutorials, make more plans, but no real step ever happens. The intelligence that once made you stand out now ties you up, turning every choice into a burden. It is not by chance that many psychological studies have pointed this out for decades. When a child is praised for being smart, they learn to avoid risk. Failure stops being an experience and becomes proof that they are not good enough. On the other hand, children who are praised for effort and process tend to see mistakes as a natural part of learning. Many of us grew up with praise aimed in the wrong direction. We were taught to protect our image, to always be right, to avoid difficulty so we would not lose the label of being talented. The consequences do not stop at school or work. They spill into relationships. You hesitate to talk about your insecurity because you are afraid it will sound like bragging or complaining. You choose to wear a mask of not caring, preferring to be seen as a lazy person with talent rather than someone who tried hard and still failed. But when you are alone, the feeling of self-deception creeps in. You fear that one day people will realize you are never as special as they thought. And that fear slowly makes you retreat from the world. The way out sounds paradoxical, but it is the only path forward, accepting that you do not need to be exceptional. The moment you allow yourself to be an ordinary person, someone who makes mistakes, someone who moves slowly at times, the pressure begins to dissolve. You no longer have anything to prove. You can do something poorly, fix it, and keep going. Focus on doing the work, not on protecting an image. Change the sentence in your head from "I cannot do this" to "I cannot do this yet." Just one word changes, but it opens up an entire space for growth. Life is not a test to see who is smarter than whom. It is a long journey where persistence and the ability to stand back up after failure matter far more than any early advantage. If you are feeling exhausted, allow yourself to pause for a moment. You are not falling behind because you are tired. You are simply learning how to live without carrying the title of your past. And when you start moving forward again, even slowly, those steps will be steadier than ever before.